Hi everyone, this is Paul from feelgoodartworks.com, and today I'm going to be talking to you about creating stencils for your spray painting. A little later in the video I'm going to show you how to create your own stencil. I found a nice stencil of a lion on Google and I'm going to recreate that. I'm just going to draw it on a piece of paper and then I'm going to show you the cutting technique that I use for actually creating that stencil. If you know anything about stencils, you'll know that they're thousands of years old and have been used in many different art forms, but they're particularly relevant when you use them for spray painting, and they can make your life a lot easier when you apply a stencil, whether internal stencil or an external stencil, to really make your art pop. So today I'm going to walk you through a number of different stencils that I've created, the stenciling process, and we'll talk a little bit about the detail of each. A lot of spray paint artists will use lids for their planets or anything that's round or circular. They're very simple to use. These came off of a cashew container. This came off an ice cream container. You want something with a nice thin rim around the edge. So that it doesn't create a rim around your painting. I've talked before about making sure your paint's dry before you drop them onto the paint, but the thinner the rim, the easier it's going to be for you. So as you're collecting these around your household, thin rims are the easiest things to use. But a lot of folks actually cut out stencils of the planets so that they can lay these flat on the paper and then paint a pattern over the top of it to make it look like the planets right in the middle of something very, very cool. These are a number of the different sized stencils that I've created. The tape sitting on the back is simply folded over tape. And that's used so that you can pick them off the paper easier once the paint is dried. Makes it a little bit easier to do that. One of the techniques people also use with these is to put weights on top of them so that the edges don't round up. A number of other household objects can be used for stencils as well. This came off a ream of DVDs or CDs, and it has a perfect round in the middle for creating a planet in the middle. And if you spray paint the white across the top, you can create a really nice light effect on your pictures. This is a simple piece of masking tape. You can lay this on the paper and spray paint in the middle of this to create a nice arcing effect. Some other types of stencils that I've created are out of cereal boxes. Cereal boxes create a nice option because you can box around the corners here. I've just taped around the corners here, and that'll prevent the paint from actually going onto the paper when you're spraying on top. Again, you just hold it down with some device, like you could use nails or heavy screws or even rocks just to lay that onto the paper. And here's the internal part of that as well. This will be used when I want to overlay a planet onto another planet. Here's another type of stencil that I've used from a cereal box. I basically cut out a circle in the middle to represent my planet and boxed in the sides so that when I'm spraying over the top, I'm not getting spray paint all over the picture as well. It's a nice little defense mechanism for keeping your things out of there. And then when you've finished using this, you can actually use what was in the middle to sit over the top so that you can do the rest of your spray painting over the top of that. A lot of spray painters also like to spray paint pyramids. And to do that, you just cut corners off of pieces of poster board and just overlay them on your painting. This will create a nice range of pyramids on some future picture that I create. Another type of stencil that's commonly used, and I like to use it frequently, are these. These are simple shapes cut out to represent clouds. I've got a number of these. I use different shapes of clouds. And again, they're just scraps of paper that I've kept out of my trash pile, essentially. Nothing fancy about this at all, but they can really highlight clouds very, very nicely. And you want a range of different stencils for clouds, because not all clouds are the same size or shape. Again, lots and lots of these. Here's one that I created that started off to being a cloud template and ended up being a mountain range. You might have seen this in one of my other videos. There are other things that you can create stencils for as well. If you add animals into your artwork, that stencil is a very useful way of doing that rather than having to paint freehand. Here I've created two stencils for a moose and a baby moose, and I've kept the internal part of that as well for the same reasons as I mentioned before with the planets. Once I've spray painted over this, over the painting, I can put these over the silhouette and then lay small rocks on top to hold them down while I continue spray painting the rest of it. Here's another stencil that I've used for a deer. You might have noticed this in one of my paintings also. But the great thing about stencils is you can reuse them over and over again. This is one I created for a wolf. And here's the internal template for that. And here's one I created for a Star Wars effect. Darth Vader, Luke Skywalker, and then you create the lightsabers over the top. And here's one that I bought. And the reason I bought this is because I wanted to get it perfect. This is for the Seattle Seahawks, and I bought this online for about 10 bucks. Now, the reason I create my own stencils rather than buy them is, frankly, I don't want to pay for them. They're expensive, especially when you want a lot of them. So if you can find an image that you like and you can free draw it and create that stencil from that, it'll be much easier for you. You'll have it to use time and time again, and it won't cost you a penny. So in a moment, I'm going to create a stencil, but before we do that, I'm going to show you what you need to actually do the stencil itself. What would you actually need to do it? First of all, obviously you'll need some paper because you're going to draw an outline on here. So a pencil, paper, a craft knife. These are probably $5-6 online. You can purchase these or any good art shop. And this is to cut out the stencil. You want it to be nice and sharp to cut out the stencil so there's accurate lines in there and it pops out of the paper easily. The other critical thing that you want underneath that stencil while you're cutting it out is a sturdy bit of card. You don't want to be cutting into the paper directly on the table because that knife's sharp and it's going to leave marks on the table. And your parents or your other half are going to be a little upset if you create marks in the tabletops. So I would recommend creating the stencils that are fairly easy for you to outline. You can copy an image off the internet onto the paper, cut it out, and you've got that stencil to go. And for more complex ones, maybe consider buying one of those. That way, you don't have to deal with the intricacies. Somebody else has probably already dealt with that. And you're only purchasing the ones that you absolutely necessarily have to have, but the rest you create yourself. Lucky with this image because I found one that's actually symmetrical. So what I've done is I folded my paper and I outlined the the left side of the lion's face, and I'll simply cut straight through both sides to create the overall effect. Again, you've got to be very careful with the knife. So there it is, guys. There's the finished stencil I finished creating. I've cut it out on the cardboard using that craft knife, and I've got a beautiful symmetrical lion that I can use in my artwork next time I decide to paint something with this. Now I've also taken the little bits that I cut out, and should I ever need to use those for whatever reason, I've labeled them in a little plastic bag here, it says lion, and those will go in my little tray. And that's it, guys. How to create stencils. Pretty straightforward. It can take a little bit of time, but it's worth taking the time and doing it correctly. And when you've created it, you can use it as many times as you like, and you can spray paint with it as long as it works for you. So thanks for watching. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button if you'd like to see more videos like this. Please send your comments and your questions. More than happy to answer them. And hit that notifications button if you want to get a heads up that more videos have been posted online. Thanks very much, guys. Have a great day.